Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information about this beautiful medieval village in the heart of Tuscany called Campiglia Marittima. If you are looking to come to Tuscany and need a place to base yourself while you explore this region, you're going to want to look into Campiglia Marittima. So first things first, we are here during off season, meaning there are like no tourists here, and a number of the restaurants and shops are actually closed for the winter. So it's definitely more of like a sleepy town vibe right now. Really chill, really laid back, and you can tell that the locals are surprised when they see these English-speaking people walk through their town and go into the shops and stores. And we've been asked quite a bit, why are you here? Apparently during peak season, this village really comes to life and it's filled with tourism, and people come from all over and kind of base themselves here because it's in such a great location to explore other parts of Tuscany. We have had access to a vehicle. For about a week, we had a rental car. And so we were able from here to drive to Tuscany, to Pisa, to Siena, Montepulciano, San Gimignano. We drove past it, another one called Volterra, a handful of really well-known sites that people would want to see if they come and visit this part of Tuscany. So I can see why this is a really great place to base yourself if you're coming into this region. But for the winter months, it's a very different pace. So I'm going to show you around through this little town, and you'll notice right away that there are almost no people in these shots because there's so many people not here. There are a lot of rental homes in this little village, as well as properties that are owned by Italians who this is their summer vacation home. So during the winter months, they're back in their regular home, and then when the weather gets nice, they will come over this way on vacation and base themselves here. This village started to take shape in 800 and 900 AD. It is quite old, and the earliest written records from this village are just after 1000 AD, and is actually a record of the owner, like the man who was wealthy and who started building this whole village. There is a written record of him donating a portion of this village, some of the property, some of the buildings, to a local monastery and to some of the monks. So we know that in order for that transaction to have taken place, it had to already have been established, and based on the building practices at that time, this little village is dated back to 800 or 900 AD. I mean, that's old. The property that we were staying at for our first month here is over 1,000 years old, and it was purchased by the current owners in 1998. So they were able to give us some history of that specific property and kind of walk us through what they were aware of as far as the history of it goes. And it's believed that a section of the homes that now are people's like homes was a nunnery at one point in time. Also that there were sections of it that served as like servants' quarters for the main castle. The castle is there is no actual castle here. I don't know if there once was, or if I have heard a couple different things, that there once was a larger portion of this little walled village that kind of was acting like a castle. But there's not what you think of when you think castle. It's nothing like that. Someone also said that this whole village would have been seen as like a castle. So part of the property now used to be where servants would stay, and now they are really beautiful Italian homes. One of the great things about this location is it is right at a train station. So we took the train in from Rome. When we got here, there was phone numbers posted about how to get a hold of a taxi. We called a taxi, and within a couple minutes, a big van came, got all of our luggage, all of our stuff, our dog, everything. And it was like a 10-minute drive right into this medieval village. So great proximity for transportation, even if you haven't rented a car. In addition to the small shops and markets that are in the village itself, there is a smaller grocery store about an 8 to 10 minute walk away, just outside of the walls of the city. So we've gone there a number of times. We also, when we had a car, drove about 10-15 minutes into a smaller town to an even larger grocery store. And then just yesterday, actually, we learned the bus system. And so we took a bus to a different grocery store about 20 minutes away, and just had a different experience. So there's not been any problem not having a car, being able to get what we need. Obviously, if you don't have a car, you're really stuck to one kind of locale, but to get everything you need is no problem having no car here in Campiglia Marittima. There is one street that kind of runs around the exterior of the walled town, and it goes right through the center of the town. And this is the one street that regular size cars can fit in, and even at that, like, you have to be really good at driving. And so we did actually take our rental car through just so we could see what it was like. But this is the one street that's widest enough for people to actually drive through. Other than that, smaller vehicles and motorcycles, that kind of vehicle, are allowed within this walled city on the other streets, but traditional vehicles are not allowed other than on this main road. And because it's built up on the side of a hill, there is lots of up and down. In order to get to the main square, you're gonna either be going downhill or uphill, depending on where in the village you are located. And it's a workout. Once we got our groceries, it's only a 2.5-minute walk to our place when we were staying up a little bit further in the village. And by the time we reached our front door, we were huffing and puffing because so much of this is built uphill. The proximity of Campiglia Marittima to the Mediterranean Sea is another reason why this village is really a great place to base yourself if you're coming here on vacation. We can see it from the window. In the first place we stayed, we had a spectacular view. We were way high up and we could see all the way out to the Mediterranean. Now that we are down outside of the wall of the city, we could still see towards the sea. It's beautiful, and I can imagine that in the summer months that this place would just be so spectacular. The beaches look so beautiful. Inside the village, there are little grocery stores. There's a butcher and a baker. There's a handful of little markets. They kind of all carry different things, so you find yourself kind of going from one to the next when they're open. They are not all open all the time, and they are not open all day long. Every place here during the winter months closes after around lunchtime and reopens again around 4 in the afternoon. Apparently in the summer months, when this place is really bustling with tourism, that does not happen. Apparently they stay open all day long, including the restaurants and the cafes, and they kind of do away with their Italian tradition in order to really accommodate all of the tourists that stay here in the nicer weather. There are a handful of really great restaurants here and a handful of really great restaurants that are currently closed. But they get really great reviews. There is one that is absolutely so spectacular, and the owner of the restaurant actually is currently over in California, in San Diego, giving a month's worth of cooking lessons to a school that's over there. And we have gone there 2 times, and it is absolutely outstanding. It's called Mama No Mama. And if you're ever here in this area, I highly recommend make a reservation and come and have some of the best seafood prepared in just divine ways. It's out of this world. It is not uncommon when we take a walk through the village to see a bunch of middle-aged or older gentlemen sitting in the main piazza or sitting inside of some of the bars or restaurants that are right off the main piazza. They love hanging out. They have their drinks together, their cappuccino and their coffee. They play games. We've seen them play cards in the restaurants. And it seems like such a really neat community of men that gather here to chat, to play, to hang out together. Not a lot of women. Not too sure where the women are, but it's been really neat to watch the gentlemen just all have a really great time hanging out with one another. So if you come here in the warmer weather, what we have been told is that because of its proximity to the sea and the way that the whole village is kind of situated, elevated up off of the lower terrain, that it's really lovely and that there's a breeze that goes through the whole town and it really keeps things cool. We have been in Italy in June and it can get real hot. So having the ability to really cool down would be important if you're traveling here in the summertime. Everyone that we have spoken to says it's not an issue here. The walls of this place are so thick, like 3 feet thick, that they don't actually ever get really hot, and then the breeze from having the windows open and the screens down, it just makes for a really lovely climate. So we haven't experienced that ourselves, but what we have experienced is what it's like to be here in history-making record lows in the wintertime. It was pretty cold in January. I mean, we come from Canada, so it's like not cold for that, but it was not the kind of weather we were anticipating. And we experienced around 7 or 8 degrees. However, before all the Canadians freak out and say, that's not cold, around 7 to 8 degrees, but at nighttime, a couple of times it did get down to 0. So there's that. but we just weren't prepared for it, and neither are these structures. And so if you have too much heat running at one time, there are power outages, and you can't have a heater running at the same time as like a washing machine, or if you have too many things plugged in at once, like the power supply here does not sustain needing to have the thing heated up constantly. So our first place that we stayed in for a month, it was a real headache trying to get the rooms warm. We, near kind of the midway part of our stay, we were able to figure out how to keep the living area nice and warm. The girls' bedrooms were small enough that they could turn on a space heater and quickly warm them up. Our bedroom never got warm. We never had one time where we slept in a comfortable room the entire time we were there, because the space heaters just did not work enough for them, and I wasn't comfortable leaving them running all the time. So yeah, definitely it was not comfortable as far as the temperature goes. And then when we moved to this location where we are now, the heat here is all radiator heat. So it's completely different than having like fans, internal systems, you know, fans running to kind of blow heat around. It's very different. However, when we arrived, they were broken and it was cold. So the people who are helping out with this property on behalf of the owner, who lives over in the Caribbean somewhere, they contacted him and said, hey, your heating is broken and you have someone staying here. So they were able to call a technician in. However, it didn't happen right away. So our previous Airbnb host contacted me and said, I hear you're having problems with your heat. Stay back on our place until your heat is working. So that was really lovely. It worked well. We'd rather be in a somewhat warm place than an absolutely cold place. Once it got fixed, this place has been fantastic. In fact, we've had the windows open to try to cool it down a little bit because it's now warmer than what we would like, but we would rather that than it be too cold. So these are just some of the things to be prepared for if you're gonna come and visit Campiglia Marittima in any climate, really, is sometimes their systems just aren't capable of what you might be familiar with from wherever you're coming from. So just, you gotta be flexible. You have to be willing to layer or bundle up or do what you need to do in order to maintain comfort, because it's like thousands of years old. There is a cute little kind of beachy town called Piombino, and it is around a 20-minute drive, 20 to 30-minute drive from here, and we've been there a couple of times. And it's really lovely. I can imagine during the nicer weather, again, that it would just be a really great place, because it was bustling with activity and life when we were there. All the patios were open, all of the restaurants and cafes and shops were all open, gelato stores and you name it. So they don't seem to close down the way that Campiglia Marittima does during the winter months. And it would be a really great village to get to explore that's close by. So apart from the views and this kind of slower pace of life and the daily or every other day shopping for your meals and, you know, that kind of thing, one of the things we have loved adjusting to here in our time is getting a morning coffee and pastry at the local bakery. The woman there is so lovely, and she bakes all of these beautiful things from scratch, and they are just so spectacular, and she can make a mean cappuccino so good. We've absolutely loved that. We love being able to go in there, say hi to her, have a little chat with our morning coffee. I love the whole culture in Italy where breakfast is like a little espresso or a small cappuccino with a pastry, and then that's it. We had some people in our home last week, and we were just chatting with them, and probably for a couple hours we just were hanging out with these two women, and I said to them, I love how you guys do breakfast here. I love this whole culture. And she was like, tell me what you guys do for breakfast. So I said, well, we typically at home would have like a big coffee, and they laughed. They're like, it's not coffee. It's like watered down espresso. I'm like, yep. So typically we would have that with like, you know, eggs and toast and roasted vegetables, or like we kind of were sharing what our specific breakfasts were. And they were just like, how can you eat so much first thing in the morning? And then when we told them what time we eat dinner at, typically like 5 o'clock, you know, they were like horrified because the restaurants here don't open till 8 p.m. And so I really have loved and just really enjoyed getting to hear and see how other cultures live, and getting a little taste of it for myself. It makes me appreciate the diversity of so many different cultures that are in our beautiful world. One of the really cool things about being positioned here is that it is right in the kind of connected into a network of trails that go all through Tuscany. And there are cycling groups we see all the time, and running clubs. My husband has been going for daily walks and just exploring the different trails and seeing all the different walking paths. And so if you are into cycling or running or walking and just getting out into nature, There, you literally don't have to walk very far before you are immersed in these beautiful trails that take you to the most beautiful places, so you can really get out and explore nature while you're here. We so loved our first month here that we decided to stay here for a second month, and we don't regret it one bit. We absolutely love this little village. And now that the weather is getting a little bit nicer, we love having a little bit of outdoor patio space so we can get outside and just continue to take in the view and just relax and immerse ourselves in the beautiful, gorgeous Tuscan landscape. If you're planning a trip to Tuscany, I highly recommend you take a peek and do some research into Campiglia Marittima. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Should I be able to, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching this video, you guys. We'll see you back here next time at I Am Loved.